Hello, and welcome to Sex is the podcast brought to you by DC's Health Sex Is campaign. My name is Poet Taylor from WPGC 95.5. And in the past, we've talked about consent, we've talked about condoms, and most recently, we talked about STDs. But today, we're talking about healthy relationships, which is tied to giving and receiving pleasure. Man, we have a guest speaker that's going to join us who is phenomenal and an expert on these topics. So let's get to it. But first, can I catch you up to speed on Sex Is? Sex Is a campaign by DC Health that encourages open, honest, and judgment-free conversations about sex and sexual health among youth and between youth and their trusted adults. This campaign was created to share accurate information and resources about sex and sexual health with DC youth. We want to provide a safe space to discuss sex and sexual health. Every time we do an episode, I think, I really wish I would have had this when I was younger, but we got it now. So let's get to our amazing panel today. Welcome, 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 everybody.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Ruby. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm part of the Youth Advisory Board. I'm from Northeast.
Hey, y'all. My name is Danae. My pronouns are also she, her. I'm from the Ward 7 area, and I'm also a part of the app.
Hey, my name is Chloe. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I attend American University, and I'm from Ward 7. I'm also a part of the Youth Advisory Board.
Hi, my name's Jabalani. I stay in Brooklyn, Northeast DC. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I will be attending Montgomery College, also a youth advisory.
My name's JP. I'm part of the YAB. I go by he, him, his. I'm in Northeast DC, and I attend Wilson High School.
And hello, my name is Ariana Monk. I attend Clark Atlanta University. I'm also a YAB member, and I'm from Ward 8, specifically Anna. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have a guest speaker with us today. We have Veronica Urquilla, who is a social worker, a mother, a youth ally, and always ready to have an honest conversation. She has 25 years working alongside and on behalf of young people and families, and is a sexual health expert, and was part of the original team that developed the Sex Is campaign. Welcome, Veronica. Thank you for being here.
Poet, I'm so happy to be back here. It has been a while, and it is so nice to see some faces that I know and some new faces continuing on with the YAB and continuing on with the Sex Is message. And like you said, I've been doing this for a long time, fell into it. I was a kid who asked a lot of questions and was lucky enough to have a lot of adults who would talk with me and answer my questions. And so I just made a career out of it. And have just kept going. And now I'm a mother who does it and who's raising a 8-year-old boy. And I assume that in the next couple of years, I'll be the mom who has all the kids in her basement asking questions.
We welcome you to the village and we appreciate you. Thank you again for joining us. So, panel, it's been a few months. How are we living? Life is lifing. What's been going on these days? How are we feeling? How's your heart?
Life is definitely lifing. We'll definitely say that. Just great. Glad that, outside is opening up a little bit, I recently just was able to headline my first festival. I'm pretty excited about that a couple weeks ago. Just been gigging, working, getting ready for school and everything. So yeah.
I've also just been working this summer as well as getting ready to start my sophomore year in college on campus, which will be a lot different than last semester online.
I would say life's going. I'm about to enter my junior year, so I'm really excited to just get it over with because I know sooner than later I'll be graduating, so I'm just ready to go back to campus and get my life back.
Definitely same, like along with Chloe, I'm also a sophomore. I'm ready to school, but summer's been pretty good. My boyfriend trapped me Not with a kid though, but I'm all cuffed up, so it hasn't really been a hot girl summer. Or it's been a hot girl summer, but it's been like lukewarm. It's been lukewarm. We still being respectful of our healthy relationship. But yes, I'm so excited to go back to school, to see him, and to do work and all that. But yes.
Life for me has really just been working, getting ready to go into my senior year of high school, so that's exciting. But that also comes with dealing with college applications and applying for scholarships, and that's a lot of what my time has been being dedicated to. I've also been working on some projects with friends, which will hopefully come into life later in the year.
Oh, it's real.
Things are going okay with me. I don't know. I have my first breakup, which is pretty new, but it's okay. I guess I'm still excited for my life. I'm making some big decisions. I'm moving for the first time. And even though that, the first part was sad, I'm still looking forward to what's coming in the future.
Oh, it's so good to catch up with y'all. Thank you again for joining us today. My life has been a little different. Some changes at work. Met somebody that gives me butterflies, even just through text message and in person. It's like fireworks. I'm thinking Drake and Alicia Keys. It feels good. Trying not to be Moosie's track star because it's such out of my comfort zone of work and fur mama, take care of the village, go home. But I am excited about what's next and can't be mad at that. How are you, Veronica?
I'm good. It has been a roller coaster and an adventure for the past year and a half, both just for what we've all been going through and then for myself. I started my own business and am staying true to my heart and working to uplift our community and do good work. So that's been really exciting. Raising a boy who is, who's got about to have man-sized feet. So that means, all kinds of things are about to change in my life. So, but I'm looking forward to all of us kind of getting back to, whatever this new future looks like for us, but hopefully more grounded in, we've had this time to take stock and think about what we want and go for it, not be afraid anymore.
Thank you all for sharing. Thank you for the vibe. So as you know, today's topic is all about healthy relationships and sexual pleasure. Remember the rules as always. We respect each other's opinions and we don't yuck anyone's yum. So let's get started. I want to start off with what makes a relationship healthy or unhealthy in your eyes?
Well, personally, I think that the foundation, the basis to any functional, good, healthy relationship, whether that be romantic or platonic, is always communication, and not only just communication, but understanding as well. Oftentimes, we I feel like we can get too wrapped up in just trying to say what we have to say and not totally understanding the fact that sometimes what you're saying, what you're communicating isn't always received how you mean it to be received. And when it's and when it's not properly received, that I feel limits the purpose of that communication in the first place.
I would definitely agree. I also think that communication is so vital in relationships, again, regardless of it being platonic or romantic, and also just being able to be comfortable with one another. That I feel like you get comfort, you get to be able to be comfortable through conversation as well, which is really important because you never want to be around a relationship with somebody who you don't feel comfortable with, because then at the same time you won't be able to have certain conversations with them, which eventually will suck, because who wants to be, with somebody who you can't talk to? That kind of defeats the purpose of being in a relationship. So yeah, definitely making sure you're comfortable with one another, and being respectful too is also a key part in, a healthy relationship.
Reflecting on the relationships you've had or you imagine to have, what would make you feel like you're in a healthy or an unhealthy relationship? Romantic or platonic? Are there things that are flags to you that this is maybe not my best space to be in? things that you've experienced or you've learned through a friend or a peer?
For me, I think a clear sign of like me having had like a healthy relationship or unhealthy relationship has a lot to do with like just the compatibility of me and the person. Because I feel like a lot of times like you'll be in something and like you'll have like these blinders on and they won't go away till like later on. And like after a lot of like self-reflection from a lot of different like relationships I've had in my life and relationships friends have had in their lives, like I've noticed that like you have to really focus on what you want and what you expect out of a relationship and keep that in mind as you're getting to know the person instead of just being like completely blinded by like looks or, you know, what they can offer you or whatever the case may be.
I want to go back to that when you break up and you're like, what was I thinking? That happens when you start to realize I think one of the things is, do you lose yourself too much? We change in relationships because any relationship where people come into our life, they may teach us new things or challenge us in new ways. Maybe you weren't someone who rode a bike before, but now you are because you met someone, a friend or a partner, you know, whatever that thing may be. And it grows us and it stretches us. But if you're really changing so much that you're minimizing yourself and you're not being your true self, that's a sure sign that that's not a relationship you should be in. Any relationship should be growing you, never shrinking you. And I think that's usually when, Chloe, what you're talking about, we go back and we look back and we're like, man, I wasn't doing the things that I like or saying the things that I like. When your friends say, you got real quiet in a relationship, you know, if a friend said that to me, then there's something wrong because that's not what I'm known to be. So I think that's really important, making sure that you're yourself and you're growing.
Yeah, I was just thinking about something that Veronica said, you know, with you know, changing in your relationships. And I feel that a lot of times people try to mold their partner or their, you know, whoever they want their partner to be into this, you know, I guess person that they're projecting onto them. You know, and I feel like that's just not the right way to go about it, you know. Feel like that change that she was talking about, if anything, should be a growth like together, you know, because that's what a relationship is at the end of the day, right? Yeah, that's just about that.
I agree. I often go with the standard of meeting people where they are and then growing from there. Because you had a whole life before you met me and you allowed this bonus to happen. So let me see how you work, how you move, how you think, how you feel, how you respond, and then communicate with you how that works with how I feel, act, think, communicate, and respond. But I'm still single and learning. So what do I know? Can we talk a little bit about what makes a healthy sexual relationship? And possibly how do you keep healthy boundaries in intimate relationships?
Okay, I'll go. I feel like one of the number one things that comes to my mind is like the level of respect for yourself, but also your level of respect for your partner or partners. Because we don't yuck people's yum. You know, if you're willing to protect yourself and protect your partners, it's just like it shows that you care and that you have this mutual respect for them to be able to, for them to understand that, you know, this is the boundary that I'm setting and this is how I want things to go for me. So I'm allowing the space for you to, you know, be comfortable in this relationship or friendship by just keeping each other safe, you know, through condoms and dental dams and stuff like that.
I definitely would agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think another good point is consent, because consent is everything, whether it be, you know, we're talking sex, sexual pleasures or not, you know, just making sure you ask like, hey, like, can we have sex tonight on this twin XL, you know, XL? Because, you know, in college, them beds is little. So you need to ask. You know, we ain't just about to get to it because we gotta find a good position, you know, because I ain't getting ready to be, you know, bumps and bruises. People think you abusing me. No, but nah, consent is really, really important. And like, you know, like you had mentioned, you know, in the question, this relationships period, it doesn't have to be just sexual. You always want to make sure you're asking your partner constantly, like, is this okay with you, or can we do this, or how do you like this? Because then you gain insight and knowledge about who you are and who they are, and which is very important, because you don't want to be with anybody, whether it's a best friend or like a partner who doesn't know you, and that you don't feel comfortable. Like if consent is uncomfortable to you, then you don't got no business being with me. Point blank, simple as that.
I actually want to ask my youth specifically about healthy relationships regarding sexual interactions. Those who are open to sharing, what did that look like? How was that build out for you? That I'm with somebody, I found a partner, I am thinking that intimacy, I want to level up this intimacy. What kind of conversations are we having to get to what that next moment may be?
I think one of the most important things to like consider when you want to have like a conversation about sex is like location and like how it may be perceived, like what, I guess, like the what, when, where, why, and how, like all the W's, I guess. Because a lot of people may feel pressured, like if you wait till like you're already laying in bed together to have that conversation. So while you're fully clothed and just talking, I've learned from my own experience, like that's the best way to like get the most authentic answer as far as like sexual relations and like likes and dislikes, turn ons and turn offs, and like how things are going to go. So nobody's surprised later on and everybody is consenting to exactly what they would like to do with the other person.
I feel like when Chloe mentioned surprises, when I get into relationships, I always make it noted and obvious in the beginning that I do not intend on being sexually active at any point in the beginning stages of the relationship, to basically save time, because from that point you learn people's intentions and whether or not they wanted to be really serious with you. So it just saves time, and and then it also adds this extra layer of trust in someone who, says that, that isn't a priority of theirs. So I feel like that is something that definitely comes up for me.
I would also add just being honest. I think there's certain things about your partner that when it does come to having sex, that that when it is your time and whenever you do feel comfortable relaying certain things you do, because you're people who have like gone through like sexual traumas. I think and me, for example, have gone through sexual trauma. I'm at a point where I'm comfortable talking about it, and when I do engage with, my partners, or specifically my boyfriend now, I have those conversations like, this is a trigger for me that I don't want to engage in. Or I'm just not ready yet. You know what I'm saying? To do this because, I've had this trauma. And I think when you, and I'm not saying you have to relay your business to everybody, because obviously you don't. But I think a part of, being healthy when you are having partners is to be able to say, what, I have a trauma with this, or I'm not comfortable doing this because of this, just like you're on the same page. They don't unintentionally hurt you, because you do want to make sure that you both are, pleasing each other, and you both are having a good time, because sex should be fun. It shouldn't be, scary. We want to have a good time. We here to both finish, and that's how it should be.
Well, Ariana, I'll stay with you for this question, and then it's also open to the panel. How much do you believe a healthy sex life contributes to a healthy relationship? Or does it at all? Can I have a suck trash sexual situation relationship?
I think, I feel like, okay, I'm just be blunt. If the sex is trash, we can have a conversation because we can make it better. It's just because the sex is trash doesn't necessarily mean our relationship is going to be trash. It may be a little tainted, because if you can't please me, how much I can't, it's just like we ain't gonna flow. Me personally, we ain't gonna flow if we're on the same page sexually as we are romantically. So it's definitely not a deal breaker if the first time is trash, but I think that's where we come in with the conversation. Like, look here, bro, what you did last night ain't gonna slide. You know, we not doing that no more. But I'm gonna show you, and I'm gonna teach you, and I'm gonna tell you what I'm into. And you know, and you do it to a point where it's not like you're trying to embarrass them, because you know everybody is different. But you do have to be as honest as possible, because I'm just not gonna lay there and not be pleased. You know, I'm gonna just say, take me back to my dorm room, you know. But instead of that, we just gonna have a, you know, a nice conversation, so that, you know, this both is a pleasurable and a great enjoyment for us both.
I think being on the same page is, I want to emphasize, like, from what Ariana just said, because I've heard from like friends who have been in toxic relationships, or just relationships that weren't always healthy, how like the sex life would be amazing, but then the relationship wouldn't be that good. And I feel like that's where like the balance comes in, and that's where you got to really sit down and like work on communication. Because if you want it to be more than just a sexual relationship, then you have to put in the work for that, even if the sexual aspect is great, but you want the healthy part for the regular relationship.
I also wanted to add that, like, because like sex is so like broadcasted, and like, you know, it's so like buried, not necessarily buried, but it's so like you know, like just in our face all the time. Right. You know, like naturally that becomes, you know, like a major factor in a lot of relationships nowadays. You know, I don't know personally how it was back then, but you know, as far as, you know, my knowledge, you know, it wasn't, you know, sex just for the sake of sex. You know, when, you know, back then it was, you know, it was making love. You know, like I'm doing this as an act to show how much you know, I love you, and you know, all of that. But I just feel like nowadays, because we're living in such like a sex centered, I guess, society. A lot of times, I'm not gonna say we, but people do get into these relationships purely off of the sex appeal, you know, and not even for the deeper understanding of, you know, the other individual. You know?
Jabalani, I want to say this as someone who's from back then. I'm thinking that I'm old enough to be from back then. Don't let adults tell you fairy tales and lies. We did the same exact thing, but you know, it's not memorialized on social media. Right? Like, but we did the same thing. We hooked up, we had sex for the reasons of just having sex. Sex was in our, not at the same level now, because there's so much instant media and images coming, but it, you know, was the same. And in many ways, you know, people like, I'm going to hook up, or I know that when I was in college, women were like, we're going to take it back. And we're like, he's going to be a player. I'm going to be a player too. And that just meant I'm going to go out and I'm going to do mine. And while I appreciate the sentiment of that, it often was really about, really didn't work out, because then you were just having sex, trash sex usually, because you didn't really want to talk to somebody about what you did or did not want, and realize that in the end, having a relationship, it doesn't even have to be a committed, but a partner that you're comfortable talking with, and you're comfortable sharing and hearing from them what they want, makes a much better sexual relationship, and does make a much better, you know, relationship in general with that piece. But yeah, we were doing it too.
Well, since y'all were doing it like that back then, I'll start with you, Veronica, when I ask about compatibility and maybe incompatibility. Is that a deal breaker if we are not on all necessarily close pages, same pages? I likes to do up, you likes to do down. Is there a workaround? And then I'd like for you to weigh in too. JP, I'm coming to you because the smile that is spread across the face.
I think it depends on your tolerance level, and it depends on some of us are good negotiators and collaborators and givers and takers, right? Some of us are good about that. You know, we're like, and some of us are just like, this is what I like and this is what I want. And there's no negotiating on that. And that's okay, because we need to know ourselves. So I think you could be open to new things and new adventures, and you could negotiate what that might look like. Okay, like I'm not quite ready to jump into the deep end of the pool, but I'll do the walk in through the shallow ends, right? And like, let's talk about that along the way. And some people are like, absolutely, oh no, go find someone else. I'm not doing that. And that's okay too, right? Like we have to figure out, and again, we have to figure out what we want before we should be entering into something with someone else, so that we can start that conversation. We may find that there are other things once we get there, once we're with that person, once we're exploring a little bit more. But we should have a baseline of these are the things I know about myself, and what I find pleasurable and what I find tolerable.
Yeah, when it comes down to compatibility, I feel like a lot of it does come down to communication and understanding and knowing what you want as well as what your partner desires, and compromising on things that maybe they don't want to do, maybe you don't want to do, and finding a way to work around it. And for those people who do feel as if it's a all or nothing deal, if you don't want to do what I want to do, then there's nothing, then that's completely fine and understandable. Some people just want what they want. But for me personally, it's always been communicate, try to find a way around it, try to find a way to make it work. And I know for some of my friends, it's a lot about spiritual energy and kind of a deeper emotional level, understanding how having sex with someone changes you emotionally and your attachment to that person and how that can affect your compatibility with them outside of the bed.
I definitely agree with that. And I wanted to just add that, like from my personal experience and just like me talking to people about like compatibility, one thing that I've like really learned is to just like listen the first time when you have the conversation. Because I feel like a lot of times when people like really want to be with somebody or they really want something, to like kind of try to convince them, and like they'll get their feelings hurt in the end, or like you'll realize they're not really on the same page. And that goes a lot to the power of just simply listening to people when you ask them a question and when they answer it the first time. Because a lot of times I've noticed like there's kind of a culture of like trying to convince somebody to like do whatever you want, like especially with like a situationship culture. Like, at first it was I guess called hookups, but now it's more so of like it could be a hookup but like prolonged, and that's what makes it a situationship. And a lot of times people that get into those scenarios don't necessarily sign up for that. But because they weren't 100% communicating in the beginning, or, not necessarily on the same page or compatible, then, they'll get into situations and like they may not be on the same page and get hurt because of it. So just having an open mind and listening to each other goes a long way with that.
So now that we've discussed compatibility with others, what about compatibility with you? Let's start talking pleasure and how we're having that conversation. How do you communicate with a partner about what feels amazing or good or great or not that great?
I think that conversation should be had like prior to any, like sexual engagement. Of course, when you're in the act, you can't just stop you could, but that's not necessarily the best of setting the mood. But like in more practical cases, you're not necessarily just going to stop and does this feel good? Am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? And so for that personally, I always just say just listen. Whatever it is you're doing, everyone's different, but most times, that person's going to have a reaction to, whatever it is that you're doing. And whether that be a good reaction or a bad reaction, I think that's, a bit, I guess for you to decide or to decipher. But yeah, just me personally, I always just, keep my ears open, and pay a lot of attention to body language, because I feel like that's, a big tell on if what you're doing is, pleasing to someone or
not. I think that maybe because I feel like that conversation can also kind of go with conversations about consent and what you're comfortable with. I feel like those kinds of conversations should happen Well, especially just not in the moment of sex or like coming up to it, because I think the best time to have them is at a time when you're both level headed and there's nothing really affecting your emotions or affecting your decision making. And so I feel like having that conversation when you're both just level headed, able to listen to each other as well as you can and just be as truthful as possible. I feel like that's when you can get, I guess, the best answers and the best kind of compromise with your partner.
Oh, I would like to add, yeah, I definitely agree with you all. I think it's so important to have conversations before. I will also say also after, kind of like being like, babe, like whatever you did last night, I like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, you put it down. You know what I'm saying? Like just making sure you're, I guess kind of like giving praise. Like you're just acknowledging that you had a good time. Or it's like specifically being like, oh, that was my favorite part. Or you know what I'm saying? Like I really like when you did that. I didn't really like that too much, you know what I'm saying? Because definitely, like you all mentioned, it's definitely important to have conversations before you do engage in sexual activities. And I will also say definitely after too, because that's, you just want to make your partner feel good.
The debrief. You got to have the debrief.
Gotta have a debrief. Yes,
right.
yes.
And it's also where you can talk about what might be next, right? Like what might be next on the agenda.
Veronica be on it. Actually, Veronica, I saw you leaning in and like nodding, but I did have a question. To Ariana's point, it's easy to be like, oh, you blew everything out the water. But then how do we have a conversation that there were no waves in the water?
Yeah.
There was no waterfall. Like,
yeah, that's much harder, right? That's much harder to tell someone that they didn't quite hit the spot. But I think that's where you start it with checking in with them about what worked. Like you set it up of like what worked for them. What did they like that you did, and what could I do better, right? And then from there, you can share like, I liked when you did this, but I wish you had, or maybe next time we can try, or how about, and you kind of, it could be hard conversations, but I think it's important to, kind of start with what worked for them, talk about what was okay, and then what could have taken it over level. Because everybody wants to please their partner, right? Like no one wants to fall short. So, we don't want to be like, that was horrible. But just like kind of, we ease into it. I think that one of the things that, for me, we didn't have text messaging back in the day. And I think about like how nice it is to be able to have that kind of conversation back and forth where it's just kind of like a little like chit chat. It could be an easy way, because sometimes it might be hard to do that face to face, or it might be hard to do that right there. You can have it that way and then bring it into a larger conversation. I liked it when you can kind of almost gamify it. Like, what did you like? Or this is what I liked. Or next time I wish you would, right? Like you kind of leading up to it in a fun way.
Is there a space there for, let's say, a counselor or a sex therapist, reading some books, exploring things together? Is that a way?
All of those things. Yeah. There's books, there's watching porn mutually to find things that you like. There's even shows, right? People are doing things you can explore. There's plenty of information on websites of like there's sensual touch, right? Like it's not all just get to it, right? Like there are other things that turn us on. I think JP talked about energy. Like what does it mean to transfer energy to each other? And what does it mean to sit in silence and anticipate, right? Like those are things that we might not think about. Like how does that turn your brain on and then turn other parts of your body on? But it's more than just get to it. Like, because foreplay, anticipation, all of those things are part of it. It's not just the deed and the act.
So with that said, can we talk about something that's considered a little taboo? I don't want to scare anybody in the audience, but I'm talking masturbation. I've said it now. It's on the table. It's in front of us. Is this something that you talk to your peers or your partner about? Are we having this conversation? I'm a communicator, so I like to talk about everything. But panel, help me out here. Are we sitting down and being like, I'm not, you, Pamela, you, however you're doing things?
I mean, I don't talk to my partner. I don't have a partner, but I do talk to my friends from campus about it a lot because we are young adults. So it's kind of like, well, what are your endeavors like? Well, what do you do? And my friends are very vocal about, trying new things with their, sex life, like whether it be the little rose thing that was all over TikTok and Facebook and everything. And some of my friends have got it. So I feel like it's good to know that my friends are comfortable enough to have that conversation with me because they do know that I work with sexes. So I think that's something we talk about a lot.
Okay. I also talk to my friends about masturbation. Occasionally, it'll just like come up, just from talking about life. And like one thing that I noticed was that as we got older, like it became an easier conversation to have. Because I feel like when you're younger, everything's kind of like taboo, and it's kind of hard to like start those conversations. But the more you get comfortable with yourself, and the more you like explore your own body and feel comfortable with your own body, the more you're able to talk about that. So I've noticed like the growth in me and my friends' conversations around that topic a lot.
I was just going to say, I feel like, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like that the conversation of masturbation is a bit different, between, like males versus females, you know? Like personally, me and my homies, we're not finna just, sit down and, oh, so do you jerk off? Oh, that's great. I jerk off too. Like that's not that's not really, how that usually goes. I guess like in context of conversation, it's more so like, something that we joke about, like versus I guess comparing like I don't know, experience. But yeah, that I think it's just a bit more like I think it's just a bit of a different stigma between like female masturbation and male or male masturbation. Like up until recently, you were looked at as like down bad, or you couldn't get none if you openly admitted that you self pleasure, that you masturbated. And I just feel like that hasn't always been the case for women's sake. But as maturity happens and growth happens, as Chloe said, those conversations do become more, I guess, serious and a bit more like just mature in general. Taking out the joke side of everything, and being able to have honest conversations about how you go about pleasing yourself. Maybe JP could.
Sorry, babe.
Oh, I was just gonna say maybe JP can offer uh, perspective on that. Maybe that's just my friend. I don't know. But, yeah.
JP,
No,
can you help us?
I definitely agree. With me and my friends, is the topic of masturbation tends to be more of a joke. Like we don't ever really talk about it seriously. I know for my friends, they think they're the funniest people alive. So with like, well, someone will take a break or leave or do something for a second, come back, and someone will say, "Well, what was you doing, beating your meat?" And they were like, "Yeah, why you ask?" And we'll make it something funny. But I feel like at the end of the day, it's something that all of us do have an understanding of. It's not something that we just don't know anything about, and we choose to make jokes about it simply because I guess it makes it a more comfortable conversation. Because I feel like a lot of the times when our friends joke, it ends up being a conversation that's a little bit more serious than it's intended to be. I know one time one of my friends came into our group chat talking about how they they feel as if that they're masturbating too much, and it was like the way that they presented it was really funny, and I ended up stepping in and was like, you don't like I don't even know how to explain it without putting his business all the way out there.
Okay.
But just giving that general advice to like, if you do feel as if you're addicted, there are ways to resolve that. And in general, masturbation is not a bad thing. It's not something that you have to completely stop. It's extremely healthy in moderation. a lot of health benefits, stress. I'm pretty sure it prevents prostate cancer, which is a great plus, and things like that. But yeah, it generally tends to be a joke with us, as of now, at least at this age.
So the first question I'll ask is, do we think this is something that maybe we should be more open to talking in homes when we're growing up? I remember from a very young age, my parents made it very clear that I could ask them anything, even if it seemed like something maybe I shouldn't ask you. Ask me anyway, because I've been here longer and I know more. But I can also remember being with some peers, and we're like 14, 15, 16. And when we started talking about self-pleasure, it was like, no, you go to hell if you touch yourself. You put your fingers down. Mm-mm. And it surprised me that those were teenagers. And I'm wondering if in this day and age, is that a conversation that our trusted adults, our guardians, our parents should be considering making? Even to your point, JP, if we started off as a joke of sorts, making sure that we're having that conversation. Because I always felt like, and Veronica, maybe you can chime in on this, that self-pleasure masturbation was the open door to what I'm like when somebody else joins me in this wonderful moment of love. So
absolutely. I mean, that's it, right? You learn about yourself, and it's the most natural thing, you know. Like I said, I have a 8-year-old, and one day he will look back and watch this podcast and be horrified that I used him as an example, or not. But you know, when he was 2 years old, he was touching, and it felt good, and then it had to be taught that that's a thing we do alone, right? For now, you can't do that at the kitchen table. We'd rather you not do that in the living room, but that you go to the bathroom or you go to the bedroom, and that is not shameful. That is okay. That it's yours, because we're pleasure seeking, right? Like that's what human nature is to find pleasure. So normalizing that it's something that we start as a baby, and it's something that becomes sexual, like as a baby, it's just pleasure seeking. As our 8 or 9, 10-year-old, it becomes something that's more sexual, that we understand that it's something not that just kind of like happens that we touch it and it's good. It's like we seek to touch it for good. And then it does begin to set up that I am normal, touching bodies is normal, touching my body is normal, touching someone else's body could be normal, and like what that pleasure should be like. So we should be starting that conversation way before we're even thinking about sex, and that that it is normal, and just that there are parameters around it, right? We just don't walk around with our pants off, touching ourselves everywhere. But that's what our rooms are for.
right, or your bathroom, or your shower,
or your car. I mean, whatever works for you. But
is it cheating if you're in a relationship and you also like to get in some alone time? Like, if I'm with you, or if you were with someone, let me pose that to you, panel. I'm with somebody and they love being intimate with me, but they also like being intimate with themselves. Two about the beat of the same drum. Am I cheating on you? Is that cool? We doing it together? I'm asking questions.
I strongly disagree with the notion that masturbation of someone that is not your significant other is cheating. Now, yeah. I feel like that, that notion that, oh, you're watching someone else and finishing and getting pleasure from the view of someone else. Like, I feel like that is like, just like that thought is like a problem, like within yourself. Like you're not secure within yourself and your guys' relationship, that dude or woman can masturbate and still be present and faithful and loyal in your relationship. Yeah, I don't feel that should be some sort of like yeah, that doesn't constitute as cheating in my opinion. I'll just
adding to what he just said, I think when you do like approach somebody, or like when you are in a situation where the person feels like it is cheating, I think one way to like kind of combat that is opening them up to like doing it together, because it may just be a thing where they just want to be with you when you finish, and like that doesn't mean like it always has to be like that, but sometimes like just having that conversation of, okay, what would you like me to do then, or like how would you like me to masturbate, or like are you okay with us doing it together, like asking those questions and not being afraid to like go ahead and cross that line and talk about something that was once taboo, I think can prevent all the uncertainty and like the wavering feelings when it comes to masturbation.
Do you think when we think toys and self-pleasure and introducing those to the bedroom, that's also, to Jabalani's point, where it may be that situation of that toy is, I don't know, Veronica, how to word this, bigger than me, longer than me. So I don't even see the pleasure of me and my partner. I'm now convinced that I can't do what's being introduced because I've had relationships where I'm like, let's bring some toys. And if it's not like handcuffs or something that doesn't pose a threat to your manhood or your partner's everything, does anybody see what I mean?
Okay. All I was gonna say is, yeah, I completely see what you're saying, and I've been there. I'm just like, bro, relax. But I always say, like, think of it, that's your teammate. That's your teammate. Y'all both here to get the job done equally, you know. They just hit it, you know, when you need to tap out, you know, you bench and you pick up, you know, you pick up your next starting player. Like,
tag team, tap
you know,
in.
it's like
Put a man, coach.
yeah, you know, put them in, coach. Like, come on, you know, because and it's okay because sometimes you really can't play the full game. Like sometimes, you know, it's a flag on the play, bro, and you need to recruit. So this is how you recruit without, you know, it getting to a point where I'm just like, okay, you taking too long. Now I'm ready to go do something else. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, definitely. But I do have those conversations. I think it's important to be like, okay, well, I do use these. I use this. I think it's okay to slowly, like, you know, introduce them into the relationship when it gets down to being sexual, like, you know, like, hey, like, let's try this, you know, spice this up, but also making sure your partner is comfortable, and also making sure you're not messing with it, you know, because sometimes the egos are too big and they're like you said, like, oh, mine not big, is you know, yes, it's important to definitely make sure your partner is comfortable, but also making sure they understand that this is the teammate, you know, we all in this together.
So what's the consensus? Do we think masturbation is good or bad for a healthy relationship?
I'd say masturbation is good. Honestly, like a full answer would say, I guess this is my personal opinion. Absolutely. Like, I feel like masturbation and being comfortable talking about it and just having it be a part of your relationship can, in a way, escalate it or just take it to another level because I feel like you're having sex with someone and you guys like have this connection and have this like mutual understanding or something, but like being able to be open about what you like when you're alone and how you like to feel by yourself and knowing that the other person understands that, I feel like that in a way can like strengthen the bond to know that they really took the time to understand you from multiple aspects.
Love that. So with the questions that we've just asked and answered, who do you talk to if you have questions or challenges or concerns about healthy relationships and sexual pleasure? Who's your go-to person? If you have a go-to person or people?
I think for like anybody, this is like a very general statement. I think the quickest way to find somebody that like you trust is to look at people already in your life that are already willing to share their personal experiences and already willing to like give you advice on that. And like, I don't know, if you're interested in a healthy relationship and they happen to have one, they may just be the right person to talk to about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like it's always best advised to go to your, if you have one, your trusted adult. And if you don't have this, I know everybody doesn't have that, I guess luxury. Then I guess the next best thing, will be your peers. And I say that with a question mark because I understand that, your peers, usually they're, the same age as you, they have the same level of experience as you. But, everyone, lives different lives, everyone experiences different experiences. So I think, coming to your peers with a question, however, how likely or unlikely it is, they may have, something that they've been through, something that they experienced that may, that you can find advice out of. And, depending on you know, how close you are to your circle. I guess how intelligent your circle is. Most times, that's that advice that you get from them will be, sound for you.
If I'd add to the conversation, Jabalani was speaking about trusted adults, and I've been a part of the ad for about like 3-4 years at this point, and I actually met my trusted adult through Sexes, and I feel like the best establishment to that relationship and that bond was her being very open and honest with us when we were meeting, and she was, okay and open with telling her life story, so it made me 10 times more likely to go to her with my relationship and life problems because, I'm still learning and, she's been through a lot of the same things and, growing up is just like hard. So when you find that person, it's just like the best thing in the world to know that you have someone that won't judge you when you speak about your experiences and ask for advice because everybody needs help, once in a while.
Has there ever been a time that you thought that you had found a trusted adult? You went to ask a question. Is there a response that you can think about from your past that made you feel like, I can't come here for advice, even though I kind of really want it? Because for the trusted adults, future trusted adults, guardians, parents watching, I'd want them to know what some of those reactions may look like that they might not even understand was a reaction, if that makes sense. Because sometimes we really don't know because we might have been raised not to talk about it, if that makes sense.
I would definitely say the whole like you're too young thing for me sucks because it's like, come on now, like I'm coming to you for a reason, like and also like kind of like dismissing my feelings, like, okay, I'm coming to you because I think you're a trusted adult. I'm expressing how I feel, and then you're like, oh no, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. Then it's like, okay, I need to find somebody else because it's like if I'm coming to you for advice, even if it's non-sexual or if it is, to dismiss someone's feelings, it definitely hurts because it makes you not want to bring it up, and it also can, make you feel like you are wrong when you aren't. So.
I also, I agree with that. And I also think that when adults will say like, or like come off as just like completely dismissive for like whatever reason, like a lot of times, I know in my experience, it was because, I was the daughter and like not the son. So they didn't want to have that conversation with me. And it was like, oh no, as a young lady, you shouldn't be thinking about that. And it's just like hearing stuff like that, it's like, we're all thinking about that. So I'm either find out from somebody else or from my trusted adult. So wouldn't you rather me hear from you? And that's what I try to like reiterate to when like I hear a response like that to an adult, just because like I think being mindful of where you're getting your information from is very important when making certain decisions.
I feel like now is a good time to say for all those in attendance, we do have a trusted adult discussion guide at sexisdc.org. But I would like to turn to my guest today, my resident expert, Veronica. Are there any tips or advice that you can share about keeping these lines of communication open? You're one of my trusted adults, so I get to bounce things off of you all the time. But I just always feel like when we know better, we do better, we move better. And even in this conversation, we're learning that we were all raised a little bit different. These conversations were handled a little bit different. So I'd love for you to weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're an adult and you have young people in your life, you have to be really thoughtful about the things that you say because before they even come to you, they're already assessing, years before they come to you, whether or not you're going to be the person they're going to be able to go to. So I think, talking about dismissing, kind of that ageism, that there's a point that you're too young to know, too young to feel, too young, those kind of conversations. I call them like auntie conversations. They usually happen around the table and you don't know that the little ears are listening, but that, you're talking about kids and these kids today. And, kids take that in and they hear that. And so you want to make sure that you're open and also that you drop over and over again, that you're there to hear and to listen and not to pass judgment. I know for me, the car ride is the place where I get all the info, right? Like, I don't let him open a tablet or a phone. It's like, what's going on? Let's talk. And if I just sit in silence, things will come out from my own son. But also just letting him know over and over again that there's time. You know, none of these are one-time conversations, so we have to keep making sure we're available. And you know, sometimes a sprinkling of books or articles, and you know, we could use the media, we can use what's happening, you know, in relationships that we're seeing to talk about that. You know, if there's, you know, a TikTok challenge that you can start a conversation with, whatever it is that can start those conversations to let the young people in your life know that you're there, you're not judging, and you're not just going to tell them what they need to do, that you want to, it's a partnership, right? So asking them, what do you think about that? Or, you know, have you heard about that? What are your thoughts about it? Instead of being like, well, let me tell you what I think. Which there will be times when they'll just want to hear what you think. You know, there's times when you want that adult to kind of give an answer from their perspective, but it's really important to honor and value that young people have experiences that are different than ours. They have knowledge that is different than ours, and we can't just assume that we know better. So I think, again, everything is about communication and always being open and listening. And, you know, for adults, shut up more. That's the biggest thing, right? Is just be quiet, because that's when all the stuff comes out, right? When you're quiet and a young person will share with you what's going on. And then fix your face. If it's fix your face is the other one. Work on your poker face is a really important one.
My mom also often says, listen twice as much as you speak.
Absolutely.
And you'd be surprised. The one that my father liked was listen to understand and to learn and not to respond. Because a lot of times somebody may be bringing something to you for that point, and you're already like, don't be out here with no dusty whomever. I already got my answer. Panel, I'd like to turn it over to you. We have an expert in the house. We're talking healthy relationships, self-care, pleasure. What questions do you have for Veronica? Because I also want the youth that are tuned in to get as much as they can, because these conversations should happen a lot more often. And until they do, they got us.
So I was wondering if you had any advice on how to maintain a healthy, open relationship.
I mean, that's one where communication is the absolute most key, because what does an open relationship mean for one person, what it could mean for another person? I think that you find people that are in successful open relationships, you know, talk a lot and set up expectations from the beginning. For one person, is an open relationship meaning that you can date one person, you could see one person? Is it meaning that you can only have a sexual relationship because you have an intimate relationship with the primary person, and you can have sexual relationships, you know, one night stands, or, you know, kind of flirtation. So I think really, like, what are those boundaries that everyone feels comfortable with is going to be the most important part to have an open relationship. And also that you check back in, because what we may start with may change over time. We may be fine with go have sex with whoever you want, you can kiss whoever you want, you can date whoever you want, I don't care, we're just all young and having fun, or, you know, that's what we do. But then things change over time. You know, you have to be honest with yourself. Have your feelings changed about that? Do you want that person closer and only with you? So I think that setting up boundaries and expectations early on, and reviewing that debrief and having conversations about that. But they are tricky, but I think that people who do them both want to be there is the other thing. I think someone convincing you to be in an open relationship, if that's not really where you want to be, and you know that, is never a good place to start, because that's you know, both people should want to be in an open relationship for it to work.
Okay, I would ask, do you think that social media, like including like YouTubers and stuff, plays a role in how we view healthy and unhealthy relationships, you know, based on like past relationships like De'Aaron and Ken, or like Carmen and Corey, like people that, you know, the youth are really looking at today?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've always had media and influence on you know, what we thought was good, whether that was TV and movies, and, you know, kind of you look back and like what your first sexual experience is supposed to be like, right? You kind of the fantasies. And social media is, you know, it is lit. It is, you know, not lit. It is lit, like with lighting, and there's makeup, and, you know, we know it also is fantasy. Reality is not reality once it goes onto a screen. so, how we're influenced by that, about what a healthy relationship is supposed to be and what it's supposed to look like, and all of the wonderfulness of it. It's always supposed to be beautiful, but there's a lot of relationships that last long. There's a lot of ugly that happens, right? And that's what the healthy part is that you support each other through the ugly. You name the ugly when it's happening, and you make a decision to keep going, right? Like, that's a healthy relationship, that even when it's at its worst, not meaning, physically, or one person is dominating over the other, but it's hard, right? Like, we don't got no food in the cabinet, or we're not having any fun anymore, but you're still my person. I don't know what's going on with me emotionally or you emotionally, but we still know we want to be here and connect back, that we're going to work through it. Anyone will tell you relationships are a lot of work, and healthy relationships are even more. We have to check in. We have to do our maintenance. That's why a lot of people go to couples therapy throughout their relationships and their time. Some people do it when they start out in a relationship. Some people go back every couple months or years and think, we need a little maintenance, like we need an oil change in our car. And I think those are the things that are important. And those other things, the beautiful and the glitzy and the wonderful, we have those moments as well, but we have to realize that those are less, right? It's really like when you come home to someone, or when you get home and you're back in your dorm and things aren't going well, that you have that person to call and to support you, or to come bring you a cup of noodles to make sure you can get through that late night studying. I think those are the important things. And what is an unhealthy relationship? I will say, I think in social media, we have seen some good examples of them, right? We've seen people be verbally abusive, physically abusive, and we've been able to almost bring more light to it, to say, like, that's not okay, and this isn't what someone should be in. So I think that I don't like to trash social media and say it's all bad or anything, because I do think we get to learn, and we have amazing discussions now based on things that people put on Twitter or Instagram or YouTube. I mean, we're talking about, Black women's mental health, because Simone, in a tweet can say something, and, every woman I knew took the next day off. I need a break too, So I think it can be good and bad, right? Like, it can prompt us to have conversations we might not have otherwise, and make us also see that we're not alone.
I just want to thank y'all so much again for pulling up. And if you thought this episode was something, then go ahead, make your way to sexisdc.org/the podcast. I told you we talk STDs, condoms, consent, such good conversations. And not only that, did you know if you are a DC resident, you can get condoms and lube, because we want to keep things safe, sent right to you? Danae has all the details.
If you are a DC resident, you can get free condoms and lube sent to you in a discreet envelope. And you can head on to go to sexisdc.org/free condoms, and DC Health will mail them out to you.
Ooh, and that's not all. Ariana, there's some other things that they should know, right?
Yes. If you do want to get tested for HIV and STDs, which is important, you can go to getcheckeddc.org. And there you can order a free testing kit that will be sent in discreet packaging to your house so nobody will know. Or you can walk into the testing sites around DC. And again, their website is getcheckeddc.org.
And we're everywhere that you are. So whether you're coming to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or go to sexisdc.org, find us, DM us. We'll answer your questions. We'll talk to you. We are a trusted, safe space, and we appreciate being just that for you. To all of our guests today in our panel, Jabulani, Chloe, Danae, JP, Ruby, Ariana, Veronica. Thank you. Round of applause. We've done it again. And to the hands and eyes that you don't see, Adrian, Sheena, Matt, this is a whole squad here. And until the next episode, we will see you. Be safe. Don't yuck nobody's yum. And we'll see you for the next Sex Is the Podcast.